All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me, and welcome to tonight's event. I'm going to pull up my presentation, hopefully share my screen if I get it to work properly, and then we'll get started. Hi, Jennifer. It's good to see you, or know that you're here. I can't see you. Okay, good. I am sharing my screen. Alrighty, so I will go ahead and get started. I'm happy to have you all here. I'm going to pull up my presentation here. Tonight's presentation is centered around the topic of learning how to successfully complete a business grant application. I had heard a great deal from folks who were not having much success in applying for business grants, whether it was through Hello Alice or any of the other portals that exist that are making capital available for small businesses. And so I've had some success in this area with advising business owners, as well as my own personal success in writing and being awarded grants for my businesses, upwards of $300,000 over the last 3 years. And so I wanted to supply my insight and knowledge and help you all understand how to do it better. So I'm glad that you are here. Remember that this platform doesn't let me interact with you like I would like to. So if you would, please share your questions and in the chat area or the question area. And at the end, I will go and look to see if you have any questions in the chat or in the questions area, and I will answer those for you. So thank you again for being here, and I'm going to go ahead and get started to present this information. I'm going to type welcome in the chat. Hopefully you all will see that, and you'll know where to enter your questions. All right, let's get started. And I'm going to bring up my screen. Someone just shoot me a chat and let me know that you can see my screen successfully as I start. Move this out of the way. All right, so how to write a winning business grant. There's millions and millions of dollars that are available through business grant applications that are made available just about every month. And there's also pitch competitions for those of you who are considering pitching your business to raise capital that you don't have to repay. It could be a viable source for your business depending upon what type of industry you're in, what services or products you offer. Grant funds and pitch competitions can be a viable alternative solution for accessing capital for small businesses in today's economy, especially when banks are tightening their funds, tightening the requirements and criteria for lending. Sometimes your only option may be grants for the funding that you may need for your working capital or your growth capital that you may need. So I wanted to, again, just share with you the success that I have had, but how I did it. All right. So the first step in understanding how to prepare yourself is to create a directory or a target list of grant opportunities. Typically, what I do is I will have my associate who works for me to identify all of the new grants that have been released in the month, to enter all of those sources into an Excel spreadsheet, including the deadline, the date, the deadline, the dollar amount, and the purpose of the grant, and also, of course, including the source itself. And then I will go through that list with him in a meeting to decipher which ones are a good fit based on the criteria and the requirement, and also the time that it may take for us to apply to that grant. And so Hello Alice is one particular portal, for example, that has an aggregate list of grant opportunities that they may oversee or manage, but there are many others. And I'm going to talk about how to find those, but then the different types of sources as well. So the first tip that I want to share with you all is something that I discovered some time ago that it works wonderfully. And it is free, and it is Google. And here's what you do. If you go to Google Alerts and you enter small business grants as a search term and save, what that will do is, if you have a Gmail account, it will send you all of the curated news, information, announcements related to small business grants to your email, direct to your email. So just about every day or every other day, I will receive a curated list from Google Alerts of all news sources that contain or features that contain the words small business grants. And I will be able to see when those have opened, when the announcement has been made, and it comes direct to my email. And then I will comb through and see, and I'll send it to Anthony, and I'll see if there's any opportunities that are specific to my state, to my city, to my industry. And if there's a good source, I'll put it on the spreadsheet and take a look and see if it's something that I want to apply to. But it saves me so much time, and it prevents me from missing opportunities, because often half the battle is you never hear about the grants. You may not read my emails. Hopefully you're reading my emails, because I do share whenever some really great grants may come my way, especially the Verizon grant that's open right now. And then I just learned that Sephora, for any of you who may be in the beauty industry, has just announced a $100,000 grant opportunity for beauty businesses. They just flow to my email. And so this is a great resource to find out what's happening and what's to come early. And then some of those news sources report on any grants that may have been awarded. And that's still good to know, because you can research to see if there's going to be a second round, third round, or new opportunity in the coming year. So that's one way to find. A second resource that I've just discovered 3 months ago is the United States Black Chamber. This is the National Chamber Association. It has a list that you can pay for. I think, don't hold me to this, I think that it is $49. It's very inexpensive, but it's a master directory of grant sources that they have curated and put together in a PDF document that you can pay for to access the list of grant sources that are available. Now, the thing about this list that the U.S. Chamber publishes is it is for-profit company opportunities and nonprofit. So you have to comb through that directory to find the opportunities that are specific to small business, but that is an inexpensive list to opportunities for grant funds. And they update it, as I understand, annually, and it's available on their website. I did share this in my email before. I think it was about 2 months ago, but you can simply go to the U.S. Black Chamber website and you'll be able to see that link to access that list, pay and access that list. So that's another source for accessing grant sources. The other, of course, is going to be your public library in your city. The main library has access to databases that they pay for that we may not have access to. And you can ask them to point you in the right direction, meaning the librarians to point you in the right direction to which directory and how to search to find business grant opportunities. So those are the 3 top resources for finding active opportunities for small business grants. And like I mentioned before, I have had success in writing grants and finding the ones that speak specifically to my industry and my company, and went for it. And it can be a great source. I've just literally received an award, small one, from the U.S. Black Chamber through the DoorDash for $2,500. And the one prior to that was 10,000. And so 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, 25,000 adds up over time. So hopefully that's helpful on how to find and then how to create your own directory or target list and then begin working it. That's a weekend thing that you could work on, is writing grants or submitting grant applications. All right, the next. So these are the different types of funding sources. Funding sources are corporations, public foundations, private foundations, capital groups. And what I mean by capital groups can be angel investor groups, venture capital groups, groups that raise capital specifically to disperse in grant awards, as well as sometimes equity investment. Many of you may know about the Fearless Fund. That is a capital group that specifically was raising capital to disperse to marginalized businesses across the United States. And then there are others who do the same, like Hello Alice and others. So these capital groups, their whole mission is to raise capital in order to invest and or award capital to marginalized businesses. Other sources are colleges. Your local colleges, in particular, their workforce development and or their entrepreneur centers may have access to capital, as well as their foundations. Just depends on the college system. Economic development departments in your city. Just about every city has an economic development department, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to provide economic development resources. And so you want to check out the EDCs in your area. They sometimes will receive federal and state and municipal funding to disperse out through grant funds. And sometimes we miss those opportunities because we're not connected to the EDCs, but you want to add those to your list. And then next are universities. Colleges and universities can sometimes be great resources for pitch competitions, as well as grant opportunities for small business, especially if those colleges and universities have a very vibrant economic development initiative or small business initiative, or sometimes they may label it as entrepreneurial resources for the small business community. So those are your funding sources. You're going to be looking for corporations that are setting aside funds for grant awards through their foundations, public or private, but then there's also public and private foundations who are focused on small business and economic development. All right, so keep that in mind. Next, What are they funding? So here's another thing that you want to be aware of, and write these down. Most of your business grants are going to focus on supporting growth, capacity, capital equipment, disaster relief, or impact. And impact means social impact. And so these are areas that you want to make sure you understand when you're reading through the criteria for giving on the applications that you're considering, that you truly understand what are they looking to fund. And why that's important is if you write a grant application and all of your narrative and the information that you share in that grant is focused on an area that is not a part of their giving focus, it's more than likely going to be declined and turned down. So you want to make sure you understand what's the purpose of giving. Why are they funding? If it's growth, then your narrative needs to speak to the growth opportunity that your business has. And if you have not written your growth strategy or your action plan, that makes it very difficult for you to explain how you're going to grow specifically, and that may get you declined. So make sure that your narrative and your information focuses on the elements that you need funding that will support growth. And growth is revenue, sales and revenue generation, if in case you didn't know. How are you going to make more money? Growth does not always mean adding new employees. It means I expect that this investment will help me increase my sales significantly. Okay, turn this off. Lastly, next, capacity. Capacity is your ability to do more with what you have. And so that could be the acquisition of new hires, employees or contractors. It could also mean new equipment, a new building, so that you can operate more efficiently or effectively. Could be rent assistance. Those things that can help you run the business better are capacity related. Capital equipment, of course, it is what it is. It is related to the acquisition of capital equipment, such as a truck, a catering van, a moving truck, a computer, computer lab, whatever tangible item that you need to acquire that you can't afford to do on your own, and you've been declined by a bank and you can't get the funding, but you need this equipment to do what you do, then the grant may be used to purchase that equipment. And they may have different rules related to that. It could be a reimbursement. Many cities that have economic development grant funds, that's another one. I should have put that on the list. Municipalities also may have funding. But many cities will have economic development funding that actually comes from the federal government or the state for them to disperse. And they may require you to buy the equipment, provide the receipts to them if you're approved, and then they reimburse you for the cost of the equipment. So just keep that in mind, that there may be different rules related to the grant funding depending on the source. And then you may have disaster relief. So any of you who may be located in an area that experienced a tornado, a flood, a snowstorm, energy shutdown, whatever it may have been, there may be disaster relief funds through SBA, the Small Business Administration, or through the Economic Development Department that has received funding from the government. Or it may be corporations who are providing grant funds through the capital partners. For instance, I just saw that DoorDash has announced a $400,000 grant for restaurant owners who were impacted by disaster. recent disaster. And so they have a disaster relief fund that they are distributing $400,000 through. So that's another grant opportunity for restaurants, but it's specific to disaster relief. And then there are grants that will support social impact initiatives. And what that really means is that your nonprofit may have built in its model a component for giving back, whether it's hiring people who are veterans, disabled, or those who are, I can't remember the proper word, but those who may have returned from prison and are looking for job opportunities. Just there may be a group of people that may be disadvantaged that you may be serving through some arm of your for-profit company, and you may be able to acquire grants to support that part of your business model. So just keep that in mind. Always read to understand clearly what the grant source is aiming to fund so that you create your narrative and your ask to specifically speak to that. Otherwise, you may get declined. Okay, good. All right, so what are they looking for? What do they need? They're going to ask, of course, always in the application, your demographic information, company name, legal name, your address, sometimes they'll ask the optional questions, race, orientation, income level for the business. There may be certain questions that they may ask on the application that are related to your demographics. The reason why they do that is because they want to know who they're serving and who their grant funds were dispersed to. So just keep that in mind that you're always going to be asked for that information. Sometimes you may also be asked your employer identification number. You may be asked what your NAICS codes are, NAIC codes are, or your commodity codes. Those are just basic demographic information because they collect information on who they may support in their impact report, because grant funds are funds that probably were received from another source to be dispersed into the community, and they too have to report back who they've supported, what type of businesses they supported, what percentage was African American or Hispanic or Asian, and so forth. So that's why they collect that information. You also want to read the criteria to ensure that you meet the criteria before you begin that process. Meaning, if you've been in business for 2 years, if you've generated over $25,000 in annual income, if you have 2 or more employees, those things matter. And so if you skip that and you submit the application and you don't meet the criteria, you're going to get declined. So make sure you read the criteria and you supply the demographic information on the application clearly. And you can have that information set up on a template Word document where you copy and paste. It makes it so easy for you to fill in that information. But this is stuff that you may know, but if you have a third-party person completing the framework of the application, having that standard template for grant applications ready can be quite helpful. Saves you a lot of emails and going back and forth and questions. Okay. Next, they're going to ask you what is your current capacity. What they're looking for is what's your infrastructure today? How many people work for you today, whether it's full-time or part-time or contractors? What's your payroll amount today on some applications? Are you operating full-time or part-time? What city are you operating? Do you own your space or are you renting? These questions are important because they want to have a solid understanding of where you are today and if this funding is provided to you, where you'd like to be through the use of the funds. So capacity is very important. So again, putting this basic information into your grant template so that it's readily available is important. Some grant applications may go as far as asking you the demographic information of the people who work for you. Meaning they'll ask you, of your makeup of your employees, how many are African American, how many are women, how many are men, how many are Asian. They may ask you that information about the people who are working for you, and that may be relevant to the type of funding that's being made available. So be ready for that information to provide it, and be very clear about it as well. Okay, so current capacity, where are you today? Now, this is the area that is make or break for most applications, because typically small business owners are not thorough in this section of the application, and they don't provide enough information. On the application, when they're asking you to justify the need, they're really asking you for a budget. But the challenging part to this section is that oftentimes they don't give you a lot of room to break it down. And so what I've began doing is actually entering the data as if I'm entering it into an Excel spreadsheet, but I don't have room for an Excel spreadsheet. So I will put first line of funding need. So let me think. I may say I am requesting $5,000 that will be allocated to ABC. Then I'll do a second line in that space. I am requesting $5,000 that will be allocated to B. And then I'll give a reason why, because this will help me with X. Next line, I am requesting $25,000 of the $50,000 budget for Z, because it will be allocated, or it will be used to help me execute this part of my plan. And so that's how specific you want to be in that section when they're asking you, why do you need the funding? It is not a blanket 2-sentence answer. That it's where you get very specific on the dollar amount you need, where it will be allocated, and why. And you may even, if you have enough room, elaborate on how that will help you generate more revenue, or grow, or build capacity, or replace, or whatever the need may be. Okay? This is key because, again, this is an area that we sometimes will generalize, and then we will add too many words that really isn't relevant to what the funder is looking for. Okay, so that key that I just shared with you, or the format of what I just shared with you, is key, especially if it's an open field where all you can do is type, break it down line by line, dollar by dollar, and the reason why, and the expected outcome. And that will present a clear picture to the grant reviewer on the other end, who will understand how the funds will be used and what you're going to use it for. Okay. Okay. Next, how will it be allocated? So I just explained that to you previously, breaking it down line by line, and explaining it as if they could visually see your budget, but you're using your words and the narrative in the space that you're given to provide that. And if you're lucky enough to be able to attach an Excel spreadsheet, wonderful. Provide your budget for what the line items that you want. And this is a table. Some may have this already, but this is purely just a table that contains the same information, the dollar amount you're asking for line by line, broken down, the line item that you're applying that dollar amount to, the reason why, and what the expected outcome would be if you're lucky enough to provide an Excel spreadsheet. Okay? Be very specific, and that'll help you significantly. What benefit will it bring to the growth and development of your business? Not you, but the business. So be prepared to really be clear about the benefit of the funding. You don't want to try and fluff in this area. You really want to set it up where you explain the need, explain why you don't have it. And what that could be is maybe you were declined for a loan. Maybe you were declined for 5 other grants. Maybe your sales dipped because of X, Y, and Z over the last 6 months. Or maybe you don't have the ability to access lines of credit or credit cards. Whatever the case may be very clear about the need and how this funding will assist you in building or expanding or growing your business. And that could also equate to creating jobs, increasing revenue, or promoting brand awareness, or entering into a new market. But you want to be extraordinarily clear in this section so that they understand that their funding actually is going to be used for a good cause. That's basically what you're stating to them. And it's not just because you're male or female or that you came from, an underserved community. It's more than that. It's really diving into what's missing in your current business that this grant could help fill. Okay, hopefully that helps. Okay, so now here's the elements that you most frequently will see in business grant applications. Other than the demographic information that they ask and the budgetary ask that they may include in the application, they may ask you to write an essay, 500 words or less, provide some type of narrative of who you are as the owner and founder of the company. I've already talked about the budget. They will definitely want to know, what have you done thus far? What's your proof of existence? Meaning, how long have you been in business? How many customers do you have? How much revenue have you generated year over year? Have you seen an increase or a decline? If you've seen a decline, what was that caused by? What personas are you serving? What solution do you bring to the table that others aren't? No different than some of the information that's included in your business plan or your action plan, but they really want you to tell the story. And this is also the part that people don't do well. They don't tell the story well, who they are, why I started this business, how I started from the ground up and built this company organically. I poured my retirement in. I've used all of my credit. I'm growing, but I still need help to continue to grow. And being very clear and concise in creating a picture as to who you are and what this business is, and where you fit in this space, so that they feel like they know you. And if you are not a good storyteller and you don't feel that that could help, or you don't think that you could do it well, get help to make sure that you have a clear story. There's a book called, I think it's Building the Brand Story, that's really, really, really good. And there are other books on how to create and tell a story from a business perspective, of course, that could be quite helpful to help you craft the message around who you are, what you do, why you do it, how long you've been doing it, where you're trying to go, and what help you need to get there. Okay? And doing it without being too long-winded, without putting too many fluff words, or trying to sound smart and it doesn't make sense. Be authentic in how you tell your story, but be clear at the same time. Authenticity is something that is challenging for people. You don't know what to say because, of course, you don't know who's on the other end of the application reviewing to determine if you're a yes or a no. But the best thing that you could do is paint a picture of how you got started. I won't say that heart, a story that tugs at the heart isn't relevant. I will say it's better to really frame it around how you started and how you got to where you are versus I have nothing, no one's here to support me. Um, I don't know how I'm going to make it. Like there's a difference in how you tell the story of the business and if you're trying to sell them. And you want to be authentic in your true reality of being an entrepreneur in 2023 and what that truly means. And if that connects with the reader on the other side, that's usually when you get a yes. Because what you're doing is explaining that you're in it, you have been in it, you are dedicated to it. These are the missing pieces that you have to get from point A to point B. This grant application can help me in these areas that I have not been able to secure on my own. And with this, I will be able to move forward with gratitude, of course, to the source of the funding. And so that could be the winning, that could be what makes the difference in whether or not they remember you, they believe you, they understand, they don't have questions. Because if your application leaves them with questions, they will not reach out. It's an automatic decline. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's the last one. Okay, so that is essentially the fundamental elements that I know from personal experience that works. And these grant applications, they take time. You can expect typically to spend anywhere from start to finish. That's reading the criteria, understanding the application, filling it in to submission. You can expect, depending on how in depth it is, 2 to sometimes 8 hours on one application. Just depends on the source and how in depth the application and how prepared you are. The more prepared you are with the data and your template, the easier it gets over time. The one thing I would tell you is not to do is to rinse and repeat, meaning you take the same content from one application, and typically what I do, I'm sorry, typically what I do is I will copy what I insert into the fields of one application, paste it to a Word document, label it and date it for which application I submitted, and I save that in my computer notes or in a Word document in my drive because I can go back to the previous applications that I have written and I can enhance, edit, build upon for future applications without it taking me as long as before. So I just get smarter and better each time that I apply. I don't say the same thing in each application because the source may be different, and you just simply have to know what that source is looking for. I even will go as far as researching the source, looking on their website under their philanthropic page, reading what their philanthropic page says about their giving tenets and their purpose for giving, who they support, and what market they are in, so that I can incorporate that verbiage and how they speak, meaning their voice, into my application. It's really smart to do that because it shows that you fit, but then also that you actually care about the source and that you are the right person that they're looking to support. So hopefully that is helpful as well. Doing your research and doing the preparation before your grant application saves you so much time and money. And it also could lead to more wins, which is more free money for you. Alrighty, I hope that is helpful. I'm sorry, I've been talking all day and so my throat is dry, but I am now going to go to chat and see if there are any questions here. Let me see. I'm going to unmute you. I think I can. Jennifer, tell me if you're unmuted. Okay, maybe not. This system may not let me. Okay, I don't see any questions in the question and answer. And I don't see any in the chat. Okay, so if that was clear and helpful, just complete the feedback form and let me know. But hopefully that is valuable information. I hope that you do take the opportunity to research and look for grant applications that fit your industry or your demographic and apply. And if you ever need assistance, you can book an appointment and walk through the application template and with me, and I'll share my feedback and help you be successful as much as possible. You can book appointments on integralityllc.com/appointments. And I'm happy to be here of service to help you. But there's plenty of funding out there that's available for you to access through grant applications, even if you're a service-based business, food, professional, engineering, tech, any type of business or industry has the opportunity to bid or to apply. I think I have a question and I hope I'm able to find it. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. You just said this was great. I appreciate you. And it's good to see, well, have you here. Hope all is well. All righty. Thank you all. I'm going to end the call now. This will be recorded and available on my channel with all of the rest of them. This is the last webinar of the season until 2024. You're welcome, Mary. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And you can watch those at any time, and you can share them with friends and associates. We had some really great ones this season, and I'll bring you more next year. All right. Have a wonderful day and a good night.